Well, let's go ahead and get started. Let me start with a word of prayer. I'll say a little bit about myself, and then just don't forget that one question I told you. Oh, that's okay. If it comes up, it comes up. All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day. And Lord, again, so many opportunities. I pray you'd help us to glorify you through the things that we say, the things that we do. Lord, as we make our requests known to you each and every day, I pray you would help us to not forget those requests, that we can be looking to see how you answer them and then praise your name for the answers that you give. So we thank you again for this time in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so today's talk, or this talk in particular, profile or portrait of a graduate. And what does that mean for the grammar school teacher? So if you're an upper school teacher and you're in here, great. This works for you too. But grammar school teachers, I developed this talk, and I'll just say briefly because I was in a, what was that thing? It was a dessert banquet. I was at a dessert banquet for my school, and it was a great, very well done, beautiful, it was wonderful. The seniors led it. And so the seniors were the MCs of the event. And there I am, the grammar school teacher, along with all my grammar school colleagues sitting at the design tables. And for the next 20 or so minutes when the seniors were making their presentations, all we heard was how amazing the upper school teachers are. Now, I don't know if you have this in your schools, but in our school, there's a little bit of a, not a bad riv, it's kind of a competitive something or other between the grammar school teachers and upper school teachers. And so we riv at each other. We have fun with it. It's good. It's a good thing. But at that particular evening, you just saw all these grammar school teachers turning and looking at each other like, what are we, chopped liver? You know, it was one of those kind of things. And so anyway, at the end of that, it dawned on me. So I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, but think about all the things that we do, that we prep these kids to prepare them for the upper school, which then made me think, you know what? We've been doing a lot at classical school in regards to vertical alignment and making sure that we've got this kind of a seamless process for these kids as they're going up and then being prepared for these rhetoric teachers to take them and then mold and shape and do these things that, of course, they only remember, down to about 10th grade. And then after that, they forget everything else, but whatever. We get them there, right? That's what we do, right? You hear a hoorah, come on, grammar school teachers, yeah. All right, this is what we do. These kids wouldn't know how to read if it wasn't for us, right? Anyway, and so that's a little bit of that is where this comes from, but also some really great ideas on how to go throughout your school with some vertical alignment. But before we can do that, we need to get into this question. The mission and the vision of your school. So the question I have for you, and we don't have to do it right now, but maybe towards the end. If you can access the mission or vision of your school, typically on your school website, how many of you know, either from memory or at least have a general idea of your school's mission or vision statement? Ish. Okay? Yes. You do. And I have no doubt about that. It's published, it's posted, and it's succinct, right? So, but and again, a school that has established its mission and vision then communicates its mission and vision, and it's usually published somewhere, and the students somehow are, I wouldn't go as far as to say reciting it, but it is part of the jargon. Because at the end of the day, your students are breathing life into themselves by saying the mission and vision, right? Well, why is the mission and vision so important? Well, in order to be able to figure out this idea of a portrait, right? So here, a picture of a graduate from the school, it's going to be a picture of what ultimately these things say, because if it's not, then you need to change those. Right? This right here is your promise to mom and dad that at the end of our program, your child will look like whatever is written here. Right? Now, again, it could be one or the other. Sometimes they mix them up, whether it's a mission or a vision. You might not have a vision, just a mission, or you might not have a mission, you might just have a vision. Or you might have both. So this is really tiny. But this right here is the vision statement, mission statement, vision statement for a classical school. And so I'll just read it real quick because it's real small. We aim to graduate young men and women who think clearly and listen carefully with discernment and understanding, who reason persuasively and articulate precisely, who are capable of evaluating their entire range of experience in the light of the scriptures, and who do so with eagerness in joyful submission to God. All right. So there we go. As you can tell, I don't have ours memorized. But what I do have is a couple of important words that we pull out. And if you walk down the hallway of our school, you'll see them on banners. So at the end of the day, everything I'm doing and everything the rhetoric teachers are doing within the curriculum and all the stuff we're teaching and the way we're teaching it and preparing it is with this goal in mind, that this is the student that is produced, and parents, you're paying tuition dollars because by the time your kid graduates, walks down that aisle and throws the hat, this is what they can do. And what can they do? Well, they can think clearly. They can listen carefully. They can reason persuasively, and they can articulate precisely. Now that is 4 easy statements that you can easily get your student body to remember, that you can get your teachers to remember, right? And your parents as they're going through. Oh yeah, that's right. This is where my kid's going. That's what they're going to be able to do. Okay. So within your school's mission vision statement, you should be able to go through and pick out some words or a statement or shorten it to an abstract. And maybe your administrators probably already have that done for you, right? And so it's a good question to have with your administrators. So any administrators in here? Okay, so good question for your administrators, right? Is in your school's mission vision, 1, do we know it? Have we said it together? Do we know what it means? And then, can you evaluate all of the curriculum you're teaching and everything you're doing in light of that mission vision statement? Because at the end of the day, that's what the tuition's for. Because this is the product you're saying that we're going to produce. Students who think clearly, for CSW, listen carefully, reason persuasively, articulate precisely. So the question really comes down to, as I already asked, what do you see? All right, what do you see in your school? If your mission statement doesn't line up with what you see coming out of your school, then just ask 2 questions. Question 1, what does my mission statement say? And do I agree with it? Because if you're producing students that don't meet that mission statement, well, maybe you need to change your mission statement. Obviously, there is some kind of organic something happening in your school, producing students of excellence, right? Like you're not dissatisfied with your graduates, but maybe your mission vision statement just needs to change to what you're actually doing, and that's just how your culture has naturally and organically grown. And that's fine. Or you change your missions, or you look at your mission vision statement and say, you know what, actually, we're not quite there. But what can we do to get there? And that's a little bit of what we're going to do today as grammar school teachers and kind of talk through that. So how do we begin the process of reverse engineering this product? Okay, so picture your senior. Now we're going to reverse engineer your senior in all the subject areas and go all the way to kindergarten. Okay, so kindergarten, where we are learning to read, not reading to learn still. So the first thing is making sure that at this level, we're asking ourselves the question of grammar methods, right? So K to 6, grammar methodologies in the classroom. The Association of Classical and Christian Schools has a self-evaluation tool. This self-evaluation tool can be accessed on their Members Resource Center. If you go and you search and you try to find it and you can't find it, no worries, send me an email, I'll send you a PDF of it. They hand it out. I mean, it's not some kind of thing that is sold somewhere. It's honestly, it's out there for anyone teaching classical ed with classical pedagogy, and they want you to use these particular questions. So what does that look like? And I'm sorry, that's really small. Question 1, so I'm going to give you the first 3 questions. There's actually about 8 to 9 questions just for grammar level teachers alone. And you ask yourself these questions as you're creating your lesson plans. So when you're sitting there creating your lesson plans, as you're going through and thinking through what you're going to do for the week in any given subject, you ask yourself, am I using songs and choral recitations? All right, am I from grammar level, memorization, right? Pack in, give them all those Lego pieces so that someday later they'll have enough Lego pieces that they can build the Millennium Falcon. Do teachers have students memorize and recite passages of literature, scripture, etc., poetry, right? Is there memorization involved, and are they memorizing these things and internalizing them? Do you use call and response? Catechisms, right? Leave it. better than you found it, right? So this is where you would call out, right? And the students respond back with something. Why are we in school today? To glorify and enjoy God, right? And so you just throw these things out there, and then the kids respond back. And if you want that list of what we do for call and response, happy to pass it on. In fact, I think originally it might have come from your school, maybe. Anyway, that being said, one of our teachers brought it from another school, so we all share stuff. Anyway, all right, so you got call and response. The second one, and again, I'm only going to go through the first three just so you have an idea. Are students using motions and movement in the acquiring and remembering of facts concepts? So what does that look like? Okay. 6th grade, mitosis, right? I'm a baby cell. I'm an interphase. I'm growing, developing, duplicating my organelles. Prophase, the DNA coils up. The centrioles come around. The nuclear membrane dissolves. Metaphase, the DNA lines up in the middle of the cell. The centrioles spindle like fibers attached to the centromeres. Anaphase, the DNA is pulled to opposite sides of the cell. Telophase, 2 new nuclei form. Cytokinesis, the cell and its contents divide. All right. So you do that, your kids will never forget mitosis, cell division, right? The basics of life, right? These cells. I'm pressing buttons like crazy. There we go. Bring that back up. So anyway, so the 6th graders, why is that important in 6th grade? Well, I'll tell you why. It's going to tie to something we're going to talk a little bit later, vertical alignment. Why did I pick mitosis? I mean, sure, the 6th grade textbook talks about it, but not like that. But the freshman biology class, they have to know it. They have to know it through and through. They have to not only know it, they have to be able to articulate it, and they have to be able to understand it. It's got to be so ingrained in there that they're able to talk through how cloning works. They have to be able to discuss the stem cells and how we can create the various different kinds of cells from that, right? So they have to know this process. So what do? Well, as a 6th grade teacher, I do my freshman biology teacher a little favor. I say, you know what? Your kids need to know this by the freshman year. I'm going to teach it in such a way where when they go to take your test or whenever you're going to go prep them, they're going to already know it. Now, granted, it took 3 years, right? Because he wasn't going to get my kids for 3 years. So finally, he got my kids. And what happened? About every one of those kids after that test came running to my room. Mr. Thames, all these freshmen bowling into my room. Mr. Thames, you wouldn't believe it. We got this test. We went through the chant. We all made hundreds. It was amazing. Yes, right? All right, so the purpose of that wasn't just so that a bunch of freshmen could get 100 on a test. But what's going to happen is they're never going to forget cell division. So if any of those kids decide to go into some kind of biological field somewhere later in life, once again, they're never going to forget it. Right? It'll only get more detailed, but I did pick a more detailed one for the freshman class, as opposed to something that would be less detailed. Does each lesson start with a review of prior material? All right, this is a little bit of your 7 laws, right, going in there. Are there frequent reviews and facts memorization? And then do teachers use classroom transitions to review facts? And of course, that's again, grammar school teachers, we know about the classroom transition, right? That moment whenever you've got to go from library to music and your administrator scheduled you with only 10 minutes between the two and you're trying to figure out what do you do with 10 minutes between this special and that special? Anybody ever face that? Well, what do you do at that time? It's a transition time. You know what that is? That's a bathroom break. It's a bathroom break, and it's also the recitation of Luke chapter 2, right? So your kids are lining up along the wall, they're using the bathroom. Meanwhile, they're coming out reciting Luke chapter 2. All right, excellent. We utilize that time effectively. So these are just, again, self-evaluation tools, about 8 of them. If you want it, I'll pass it on to you if you can't find it online. So let's get back to the alignment piece. All right, so back to, does the Rhetoric program get all the fun? No, of course not. We have a blast with these kids. So what does it look like from the vertical alignment piece? So one of the things is to know where this kid's going to. Right? These children in your class, they're going to wind up as seniors someday, and these rhetoric teachers are going to fill their heads with something. The question is, if we have no idea what the final product is, now this doesn't mean that we have to go and read Herodotus or Plato's Republic, or, right? Now some of us may have done that, but if I just said those things and you instantaneously got overwhelmed, then you're probably in my ballpark, where I have not read all of those books, right? But what you can do, and my encouragement for you is this. Get a hold of the omnibus list. And maybe 1 book a year, 2 books a year, start tackling it. I'm not just saying that because I want you to do a bunch more work. I'm saying it because at the end of the day, if you have a better understanding of what the senior has to become at the end, that will help you understand better what you can do farther down. Remember, I didn't even think about this mitotic cell division chant until I realized that the biology teacher, farther up the line, needed these kids to know it. And I talk about it in 6th grade life science. Well, let's not just talk about it, let's act it out, right? So I get the grammar stage done that way with the memorization of facts. Do they have to have this deep, comprehensible understanding of what happens? No. Do I talk about it anyway? Of course, because there's some kids that can, right? Think about your ERB scores. You got your top 3, your 9, 8, 7 stay 9 kids. Those are the ones you stick them in a closet, shut off the lights, they're still going to learn, right? Your stay 9 kids that are the 1, 2s, 3s, those are the ones that are sitting there and they're blank and they're staring at you and they have no idea what's going on anyway, right? I'm not trying to be disparaging, I'm just saying, right? So, and then of course you got your stay 9 kids in the middle, and those are the ones that are listening to you, they're getting half of what you're saying, right? But you know who gets the chant? All of them. All of them get the chant. Do they have to understand it? No. Why? Because we're the grammar stage. All they need is the Lego pieces. Will some kids understand it? Yes. Are we going to gear our teaching towards the top third of the class and drop the bottom 2/3? No. No. Right? Your tuition by your school isn't paid by just the top third of the kids in your school, are they? No, of course not. So we're not going to drop off the rest of the kids. So, peer observations. You don't understand Herodotus one bit? Not a problem. I guarantee you that if you go and you talk to your administrator and you say, I really want to grow my understanding of classical pedagogy. 1, oh, thank you. That was the response. 2, you say, I'd really like to observe an upper school class. I've just been reading Plato's Republic. Your administrator again. Thank you, God. Right? And then, what? I'd like to go sit in on so-and-so's class just so I can observe this one class and how they go through the classroom discussion of it, right? Boom. What'd you just do? Professional development that your administrator doesn't have to pay for, minus a sub potentially, right? But, you know, if the administrator happens to have a little bit of a time in the schedule, you're talking about 1 period, maybe the administrator, I'm trying to put you on the spot here, but, you know, I put myself there too, all right? So my role, real quick, just so you know, my role, I teach 6th grade math, science, Bible. It encompasses half of my day on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Tuesday, Thursday, just math and science, to 1 section of 6th grade. We normally have 2 sections all the way through. Had a dip 1 year, so this allowed me for this year to do this. Next year, I have no idea what I'm going to do because we'll have 2 sections again. But we'll figure it out. But for the meantime, that allows me the afternoons to do admin work. So I do a lot of admin work that way, and I will go into classrooms and I'll substitute while teachers can go and do peer observations and things like that. Again, it's free, won't cost your school a dime, and it's professional development for you, which, by the way, you can write down somewhere and give yourself credit for, right? So for those of you who have public school teaching certificates, guess what you just gained? An hour or whatever of what you're looking for that way, right? Anyway, so give you kind of an idea. So stick your nose into the rhetoric dialectic stage. See what they're doing. Wrap your mind around it. Kind of get an idea, right? And if it's over your head, no big deal. Go again. At some point, you're going to start catching a vision for what this looks like. And you know, when you have a vision of what the end goal looks like, you run towards it with a little more intentionality, don't you? Because you know what it looks like. I didn't have that vision until I saw what was happening at senior thesis, and I saw these kids get up and speak better than I could. And I'm just like, oh, this is what's produced. I'm getting goosebumps watching this thing. And you mean that way down the line, when I get these kids and they can't think worth a flip, their brains are deep fried. They go 6th grade, sorry. You know, I love them though, love them. Anyway, and I just like, what happens to these kids, right? It's like I'm teaching kindergartners that are 12. You know, somehow they get their brains back, and this is what they do, and I'm involved in this process. Praise the Lord, this is amazing. All right, then collaborate with other teachers in your school across grade levels. So this isn't vertical, this is horizontal. So now that you know what's going on with your kids, and you have an idea on what this end picture is, I'm going to go talk to my art teacher. Why is that? Well, because if you use Veritas Press Bible cards and history cards. Anybody use Veritas Press Bible cards and history? You know what I love about those cards? Do you love the pictures on the cards? I don't know if you love the picture, but I love the pictures on the cards, and let me tell you why. Because I love to have those kids get out the picture, right? And I tell them, look at that picture. What do you see? Right? Because a lot of them are works of art. And if you don't have them, we'll find, I think there's some, you can probably get the pictures, PDF, online, I mean, whatever. Just see if you can get a hold of it, or just get a piece of art from the time period that you're teaching. Just a piece of art. Artrenewal.com. Go sign up. It's free. Okay? And you can pull out masterpieces from all over the world, type them in, look at the time periods, and what you get to do at that moment is you get to talk about, I'm doing art. I'm doing art in Bible class. Right? So I'm horizontally aligning. What am I doing? Well, the art teacher wants the kids to understand art history. What's the art teacher's problem? She only has 45 minutes once a week. How is she going to get these paintings done that need to be up in the hallway for the accreditation team to come through and see? Right? That was a little cynical. No, anyway, you get the picture, right? She's got to get this artwork up in the hallway. She only has 45 minutes once a week. I mean, come on. She's got to teach these kids basic concepts and drawing and painting. And where's the time for the art history? Oh, I can help out with that. And it only takes me 5 minutes, if that. What, of a 25 or 30-minute Bible lesson? Of course. Why in the world would, on this particular Bible card, this person have a Gustave Doré portrait or a sketch, you know? Why would that be on there for 2 Thessalonians? You know, there's the picture, and what happens? And this is amazing. So this is 6th grade, though, but still. Look at the picture. What do you guys see? Well, I see that 4 or 5 of the guys are looking at the person doing the talking. Okay, what else do you see? Well, this part looks like light is coming from the top. Well, that's interesting. Well, do you think that means anything? Is there any significance behind the light? Right? Talk to your art teacher. Ask your art teacher to give you the questions to ask about art. Right? And then what happens is you're sitting there no more than 5 minutes looking at a piece of work, right? And then this culminates in you taking them somewhere else in the school, and you gather the class around in a big old horseshoe looking up at a tapestry, and you say, what do you see in that tapestry? And the kids just start throwing stuff out. You get goosebumps. They're like, it's red. What does that mean? Passion, right? Hey, look at those creatures on there. What are they? Oh, they're like furry woodland creatures. Okay, well, what do you see on this? What do you see on that? And they just start pointing all these things out because you're starting to train them to do it. Okay. So, again, vertical alignment, what happens? Well, then your kids are at the rhetoric stage, and they get to go on a trip to Boston or New York or Philadelphia or Rome, whatever, right? And there they are at said something or other museum of art, and they're walking through, and what are they doing, right? The docent who's leading the tour thinks that, oh, it's another school group. Oh, gosh. How do I do what I do in life, right? I'm just kidding. But, you know, sometimes they say that. The kids come in, and it's like, these kids don't care about art. Your kids, they walk in, the docent starts talking, and a kid raises their hand. A question? Yeah, what's your question? I noticed there's a tinge of red in that, right around the area where St. Jerome, you know, is sitting. The robe is red. Is that robe red because that signifies the blood of Christ? Oh, his jaw hits the ground. What just happened, right? Well, okay, your kids are going to recognize that. And I can say that because I did it for 2 weeks with the Bible cards, and the kids, they won't let me miss it. We get the Bible cards out, I hand them out, what happens? They look at the Bible card, Mr. Thames, are we going to look at the picture? Of course we're going to look at the picture. Yeah, let's do this thing. And we do. So what did I wait too long and it timed out? Anyway, so then what happens is you're doing your horizontal alignment. Talk about drama, right? So you got the drama thing going on. Okay, that's skits in your classroom, right? Okay, so if you're going to do a skit in your classroom, you're going to do it based off of the historical time period. Now we're talking about people. Okay, oratorial skills, right? Oh, let's memorize a piece by Walt Whitman. You know, one of your kids gets up and says that. Knocks the socks off. Why? Because you didn't just focus on the kid standing up and then reciting it and being able to project and hear his voice at the end of the classroom. You actually, with help from your drama teacher giving you a pointer or two, you're actually having the kid walk around and he's looking at the other students, saying the piece with passion, right? Because you're actually requiring it, because you know about it. So do you see how so much of this is based? Why do we not do it? Well, we don't do it because we just don't know enough about it. And it's not a knock against us as teachers, it's just there's so much to know in education, right? And I'll be the first one to say, I don't know it all, right? But what little pieces I'm getting, I'm trying to intentionally use because you're developing this end product. Okay? All right, so let me give you a couple examples, and then after that, I want to turn it over to some questions. Because this one, we're going to have a little more of a chunk of time for questions so that you can ask me about the vertical alignment piece. Maybe you have some ideas that you've shared, maybe some conversations you've had. So here's an example. So here I am, 6th grade math, and one of the issues that I was constantly facing with my kids, how many of you are math teachers? All right, got a math teacher. One of the, at what grade level? 8, that's right, 8th grade. Okay. Have you ever had kids come in and they don't know how to separate the unknown and then unknown equals something, right? All right, struggle with that. So here's what happened. 6th grade, they would come into my room and tears. I mean tears, bad tears, right? And so here we are. Let's create something. Okay. Okay, right? There's the problem. And I'm showing this to my 6th graders, and so we start off with our chant, right? What's the first thing we do with a problem like this? Get the unknown on one side by itself. Wonderful. Let's take a look at it. What do we have on this side of the equation? Well, we got the unknown. What do we need to get rid of first? Let's get rid of the plus 5. How do you get rid of a positive 5? Minus 5. Excellent. All right, great. Minus 5. Now, whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other. They're saying back, right? So I got to subtract 5 from both sides of the equation, right? And so here we go. All right, let's do that. Boom, bring it down. 3x equals 15, right? So there we go, 3x 15. Okay, now what? What do you have to do? Get the unknown on one side by itself. So we're not done yet. Okay, well, what is this? 3x. No symbol between. What does that mean? It means times. Great, wonderful. How do you do opposite of times? So I'm going to get 3 times. Get rid of the 3. Divide. Opposite. Wait. Divide by 3. All right, whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other. Okay, there we go. Meanwhile, the kids are writing this down in their math spirals, right? Because they have math spirals. And we've got it. We're writing down every single example. They're copying it down so that they can see all the examples. So when they go home and mom and dad are sitting there and they're looking at mom and dad. Oh, I don't understand how to do the math homework, right? Mom and dad can say, well, do you have your spiral? It's right here. Oh, look at it. This is how Mr. Thames is teaching you to do it. There's 3 examples of all the problems that he gave you for homework tonight. Math with no tears. That's what I call it. Anyway, as opposed to, well, I don't know, he's doing it different than I learned, so I'm going to teach you how to do it because I don't have any examples. And then, of course, the kid's crying, puddle on the floor, and it's just a bad situation for everybody. So, right? So then I teach them that any number with the same number on top, same number on bottom is the same as 1. What's 1 times x? Does x change? No. All right, so x is x. Bring it on down. Hey, read this real quick for me. What is that? 15 divided by 3, because I taught them to read fractions as division problems. Why? What is this thing called? It's called a division bar. All right, so why are all those pieces important? Because I know my kids are going to go to pre-algebra. So why am I teaching a little concept of pre-algebra in 6th grade? Well, one, it's kind of a pre-algebra textbook. But outside of that, I'm prepping them. This is lesson 93. When do I teach it? I teach it in September. By the time I get to lesson 93, which happened 2 weeks ago, in my Saxon textbook, the kids looked at the lesson and they just did it. Now, I'm not doing it because I'm trying to force feed kids math problems. What I did was I taught them logic. And how did I do that? Well, I talked to the logic teacher, right? And logic, the ability to manipulate the truth so you can get it to say what you really want it to say. What's the object of this truth? Well, x is 5. And that's the only way this truth can work, right? And so I just taught them logic. Manipulating the truth and ultimately getting the facts, right? And so I tell them that. Now, am I teaching them the logic? No, but I'm doing what? I'm sowing seeds. So then when they get to logic, what do they have tied to the concept of logic? Success, good feelings, positive experiences, right? So they got success, good feelings, positive experiences tied to the subject logic. And I don't know if you know much about logic or teaching logic, but how many kids are, oh, I can't wait to take logic this year, right? I mean, that's what you hear over the summer, right? No, of course not. But now the 6th graders say, yeah, we're ready for logic. We're ready to do this, right? Because I tell them, look, this is what we're doing in logic. So again, the communication makes a big difference. And then let me think through what my next one would be. So there's the math. Reading, let's see here. Well, let's just stop there for a second. Do you guys have any questions? You guys have any questions kind of where I'm going with this? Do you see where I'm going with it? Does it make sense? In order to be able to create a portrait of a graduate, if you realize that your curriculum needs to change, of course, the great thing is that's not your job, right? As a grammar school teacher, it's not your job to change the curriculum, right? That's the job of your head of school, right, or your administrator. But your administrator won't do it without you because he's going to ask you questions. And what kinds of questions will your administrator ask you? Well, if we need to change our curriculum, we have to find something that's going to fit the profile of a graduate. What does the profile of a graduate from this school look like? And you ask those questions, and you take the curriculum that you have, and instead of spending $5,000 to $10,000 on a brand new curriculum, relook at the curriculum you have and ask the question, what do we need to do to be able to get the final product with what we have? Is it just sending some teachers to a math conference at SCL this coming June to hear Ravi Jain talk about math and to get a better understanding of what needs to happen and to be able to kind of get their minds wrapped around it? Maybe so, right? I mean, how many of us went beyond college algebra in college? Okay, all right. Okay, so I would say a minority in the room, all right? And how many of us teach math of some sort, any kind of math in this room? Okay, all right. So I in no way am saying that if you didn't have at least past college algebra that you don't know what you're doing in math. That is not what I'm communicating when I'm about to say this. I'm including myself in this. Because I didn't take college calculus and go so far with it because my brain understood math wholly as God's order and reality, and the fact that God created this world with an order and a reality, and that math is man's explanation of God's order and reality and his immutable nature. Because I don't fully understand that, is it possible that there are tiny little nuances that I'm missing as a 6th grade math teacher that I could be teaching my kids to prepare them to be able to hit the profile of a graduate even better than I already am? And here's the question. Do I know everything there is to know in math? Go ahead, say it. No, I don't, right? But the more I can develop myself and my understanding of it, the better I can accomplish what ultimately the curriculum is needed to get the profile of a graduate. So I'll ask the question before we sit there and throw Saxon in the garbage can and all go to Singapore math, right? I'm not knocking either one, okay? I'm just saying, before we spend $10,000+ in parent education courses and completely change our curriculum, let's take a look at it and see, what is the profile of our graduate before we spend thousands and thousands of dollars? Can we meet it? What does it look like in math? And if we don't have the answer to that question in each one of the disciplines, take the time to do it. You'll save yourself so much time by doing that. And then you can reverse engineer and go all the way down. So CSW did this with the writing curriculum. And so what we did was we realized they have to write a senior thesis, profile of a graduate, a kid who can get up in front of a bunch of people with a 26 some odd page research paper, that ultimately is persuasive to some degree with great rhetoric. So they have to have their ability to write, all this kind of stuff, in front of a panel of judges that they probably don't even know, who are going to pick it apart after they're done with their 15-minute presentation of this paper. And then they have to answer this panel of judges, right? This is the end goal, all right? No pressure, 6th grade composition teacher. Right? But how do we prep the kids for this? And so we reverse engineered. And we went all the way back down to kindergarten. And we said, okay, kindergarten, we're good. Let's keep going up. 1st grade, yeah, okay. 2nd grade, they're starting to work on this poetry piece. We're getting some writing pieces. The kids are writing. Okay, great. 3rd grade, introduce fable. Introduce fable. 4th grade, practice fable, practice fable, practice fable. 5th grade, practice narrative, practice narrative, practice narrative. And what's important about all these things? Well, they all have specific terms that go to them that allow the students to have the outline structure in their brain so that by the time they get to their freshman year and you say, write an encomium on Abraham Lincoln, and they can say, encomium, background, education, knowledge, right? And they go through in their head, background, education, cultural influences, and they go through this list in their heads of the things that are required for this paper. All right, background, that's the first paragraph. Education, second paragraph. All right, and now they have a paper. They're actually literally composing a paper right in front of your very eyes based off of the knowledge they have about Abraham Lincoln that you gave them whenever you did U.S. history back in the 6th grade, and they took Encomium, right, and the progymnosmata, right, and so they have all these categories, and they can sit there and just spit it out for you. You taught them how to use the Lego blocks. Here are the Lego blocks. These are the facts. Put it with the pieces, and then tell your story. And I have seen 6th graders produce papers that blow your mind away, just from them having those pieces. And that was because we took the senior thesis and worked our way backwards and said, how low can we go in regards to teaching these concepts, these words, so that in 3rd grade they understand the word fable, they understand the word narrative in 5th grade. We start with encomium in 5th grade at Mother's Day, because the children write an encomium about their mothers, right? And they present it to their mothers on Mother's Day for 5th grade. It's a special little thing. And then 6th grade, they get kind of more of a smattering of a couple other, vituperation and other things like that. But, at the end of the day, we've got it all lined out. So at each grade level, they get a discipline that is hammered. Now, they get other disciplines too, right? But for the most part, they hammer a particular discipline at each grade level until finally they're done with the thesis, their senior year. So we weren't able to do that without going to the profile of a graduate, starting at the top and working our way backward. So again, what is your role as the grammar school teacher in all this? Here's my encouragement. So the action plan. Head out, go do some observation of some of your upper school teachers. Look at what they're doing. Try to get a better understanding of what it is they're trying to do by doing some peer observations. Watch what they're doing. Ask them questions, right? Start reading some of the books on the omnibus list so that you can see what it is these kids are talking about. You may be surprised that if you had an off period that you could actually get away without photocopying or grading papers. You go sit in an upper school lunch, some kids might be talking about something, and you could sit down and actually have that conversation. They might be talking about Plato. And for the first time, I read Plato's Republic. I can talk about this with these kids, right? And it's really encouraging. And then what happens is you also, as the grammar school teacher, are still involved in the education process of these upper school kids as they continue going up to their senior year. All right? They don't forget about you. And again, you're not doing this because you don't want to be forgotten. You're doing this because it's helping you develop personally and professionally so that you can see the vision, you can see the goal, what you're shooting for, and work towards it. So that's really all I have to say. But before you just go, are there any questions? Anybody? Maybe you don't have a question now. Maybe you'll have a question. If you're trying to do this in your school, or this is a conversation that you want to have with your administrator, and I need to talk to whoever it is, I'll talk to them. We'll have a conversation. It'd be great. Maybe it's already happening. Maybe you just want some guidance. Whatever it is, I'll make myself available. Yes?
So there would be an incredible amount of vertical meetings.
Yes, that's exactly right. What you would do, so the progym or the progymnosmata meetings, we met once a month for about 5 months. And at the end of each meeting was kind of an action plan of what the people on the team, we had about 4 people on the team, was an action plan of what the people on the team were going to do in between each meeting. So the idea is that we could get it done rather quickly and then determine a curriculum. Because I ordered the curriculum, so I said I need to know by May. So
maybe advice you could give us, we are a K-3.
Okay, K to 3.
Adding a grade level per year.
Yes.
We just started talking about we need this, this portrait of a graduate.
Yes. And you're at a great stage to do this.
So yeah, my thought was try to create it now, really early, and then develop.
Totally. Because
is that reasonable?
Yes, it is. Okay. It is completely reasonable, and I would even go so far as to say totally necessary. Go ahead, look at the profile of your graduate, because here's the deal. If you start now with the end and goal, and you reverse engineer that, you've already determined all of your curriculum. There's no looking at, this didn't work so well here, right? Let's just change it because we're still young and that's more thousands of dollars for different curricula because you want to do it once and for all. Now that doesn't mean that, curriculum won't change and that you won't, but if you have the end goal in sight to begin with, you can reverse engineer that and bring it down and go ahead and know, well, I know in 4th grade they're going to be using this. Like for instance, let's say you want to do program, and there's another thing I want to talk to you about, but we can do that separately from this topic. It has to do with the value of a textbook with a curriculum with a scope and sequence already mapped out for you. versus somebody who is very, very knowledgeable in the subject that could teach it on their own. And then what happens when that person moves to another state and you're stuck with nothing, right? The textbook is key, because then you at least know that there's no going below that level, right? So you're keeping the scope and sequence in line, and we can talk a little more about that, just the curriculum piece of it. But yeah, I want to talk with you more about that. Let's talk about that. That'd be good. Any other questions? Yes?
When you were looking at vertical alignment, is there any value from your upper school teachers coming and viewing your grammar school to see if what they're doing is supporting what you're doing, or even gaining knowledge on how to introduce some new, because grammar school, I think, is where you introduce so many new topics.
Right. Yeah, there is a great value in that. In fact, that I've had a number of upper school teachers that have actually come and talked to me about things that I'm doing with them. That's how we got the idea for the biology with the mitosis. And it's also just kind of talking with Mrs. Schmidt, at our school, upper level math, talking about these concepts, if we can get this down. So the third grade teacher actually starts with this. The fourth grade teacher repeats it. Do the kids understand it? No. Right? Fifth grade teacher, the kids start to get the concept. By the time they get to sixth grade, they understand how to do this. And they've done it at the beginning of the book, right? So there's great value in that, because actually that's what gives us a vision too. They look and see what's happening in grammar school and say, oh, I see the nuts and bolts of how we get to this point. I got an idea, because really I need my kids to be here, but I just don't know how to do it. And then that begins a conversation that might be bigger than just you at your grade level. It might be the teacher above you as well. And it gets you and those teachers together just to have the conversation of, this is really what we're looking for. We're not really quite accomplishing it. What can we do to edit it a little bit? And then in about 2 years or 3 years, depending on how long it takes for that class of kids to get there, remember, you're not going to see the fruits of this for how many years, right? But when it happens, it'll happen. And I'm telling you, it's happening right now with the sixth graders. Because for the past 2 years, they've come to me knowing how to do this. And this was tears in September, and lesson 93, it was pulling teeth in March. And now they come to me knowing how to do it, right? And again, the goal isn't to, how can I make teaching sixth grade super simple? That's not right. That's not the purpose here. It's because I'm not spending my time on this. I can now talk about this and talk about logic. And they already feel it's breathing life into it. You guys are good at this. You're going to be great at logic. As opposed to, I really struggle with this. What, it's like logic? No! And then they really hate it, right? So, any other questions? Okay. Well, how about 15 minutes early? Does that sound good for everybody? Go to break, use the restroom, get some drinks. If you want to talk, feel free to hang back and we'll visit. But thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.